What up, good people? It's me, Johnny, back at it again with another video. And with the second Deadpool and Wolverine trailer that we got a little over a week ago now, I wanted to make a video breaking down these two, plus the villain that we will get in the movie, and Cassandra Nova, of course, according to Marvel Comics. The movie isn't set to release until July 26th, but hopefully this video will help provide some insight into their characters and what we might expect to see in the movie, well, especially from the villain anyway, and Cassandra. But before I dive into any of that, if you enjoy the video, please, for me, like the video, subscribe to the page, and hit that notification bell so that way anytime a new video comes out, you will be alerted. Also, if you want additional content from me over a wider range of topics, check out my podcast that can be found anywhere podcasts are being played nowadays by searching for the same name as the YouTube page. But without further ado, let me dive into this. So, first, I'm going to start with the stars of the movie and Wade Wilson, aka Deadpool, and then I'll cover Wolverine since, most people might already be a bit aware of their characters. So I'll do them first, and then I'll spend a little bit more time diving into Cassandra. But first up, is Deadpool. So his character was first introduced in Marvel Comics in New Mutants number 98 that was published in February of 1991 that was written by Fabian, about to butcher his last name, Nicosia and Rob Liefeld. When first introduced, unlike the anti-hero we've seen him, come to be in the MCU, or at least in the Fox universe of the MCU before he got to the MCU, he was more of a villain in the aforementioned comic. And in the next comic he appeared in, which was X-Force number 1 that came out in June of 1991, he was still a villain. During these runs, he was mostly beefing with Cable, and I believe that Rob Liefeld was trying to see, if he could make Deadpool a reoccurring villain that opposes Cable, since at the time Cable had just got introduced, to the X-Men with Marvel Comics, and we all know that sometimes what makes a good superhero is the arch villain of said superhero, kind of like Batman and the Joker. Oh, fun fact though, Deadpool's character was inspired, I would say, by the DC villain slash anti-hero in Deathstroke. I mean, look at this side by side and tell me you don't see the similarities. Anyway, though, after this run, he mostly just, showed up in a variety and different comics and fought different heroes like Wolverine and the Hulk, for example. It wasn't until he got his own comic, which first came in the form of a mini series called The Circle Chase, and then a full length comic in Deadpool issue number 33, where he started to show some, hero ish style ways. For anyone that, may be a first time listener when it comes to Marvel Comics and is confused by Deadpool's first comic being issue number 33. So, comic book numbers go by the series of which they are a part of. So, the aforementioned comic is issue number 33 of that series. So just keep that in mind in case, either you're new or you just never really kept up with comics like that. To finish out with Deadpool, in the comics, he was famous for breaking the fourth wall, much like, we've seen him do in his movies, and having that comedic way of talking like we have always seen in the movies, and, and talking at the audience and kind of taking us behind the curtain. With his introduction to the MCU, they might bridge the gap with what ties him to Wolverine, which is the Weapons Project. So in Marvel Comics, much like we saw in the MCU, Wade Wilson had cancer, and to try and cure it, he enlisted into this program. The original weapons program in Marvel Comics was meant to create, advanced superhumans to be able to fight against mutants or other superpowered individuals. The first person we got from this experiment was Steve Rogers, aka Captain America. After the founder of that program was killed and Dr. Erskine, if you fast forward a little bit, the Weapons X program was founded in Canada, and this program saw the creation of the iteration of, Wolverine that we see today with his, adamantium claws and skeleton. After Wolverine escaped, though, the studies that were done on him were able to be used to create Deadpool and give him his healing factor. In the first comic that we saw Deadpool fight Wolverine, which I believe was Wolverine Volume number 2, number 88, this happened due to Wolverine, going to do a favor for James Hudson and, check on his friend Garrison Kane, also known as Cable in the comics. When he gets to his apartment, he finds it, kind of in shambles. He goes in and encounters Deadpool. Now, Deadpool was there to try and get back his girlfriend and Vanessa, or ex-girlfriend, rather, I should say, and Vanessa. We all seen Vanessa in the movies. She, of course, is dead, at least in that Deadpool storyline. So we'll see, obviously with the multiverse, she may come back. But in any case, they fought and Deadpool won this battle after impairing Wolverine with both of his swords. It's actually on the cover of that comic that I probably showed a second ago. Even though this was how it played out in the comics, I am curious though to see what story they might use in the movie. Now, me personally, I think that they will use a mix of this one and the story from Wolverine Origins. Nope, not that one, but this one that came out in April of 2008. Plus, it will give Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman an opportunity to take yet another jab at that truly awful movie. Next, I'm supposed to be covering Logan, also known as Wolverine, but I pretty much talked about his origin, right, with the weapons program and, how he got his adamantium. And I don't think I have to actually go deeper into his character. Of course, though, if you do want a deeper dive into Wolverine and his character, let me know in the comments, and I'll definitely do a video on that if that is something that you guys and gals out there listening would actually want. Now, to end this video, let's talk about the villain of the movie and Cassandra Nova Xavier. Yep, you heard that last name right. She's the twin sister of Charles Xavier, also known as Professor X. The thing I love about her character is that, well, for me, and I think actually with the way that she was drawn into the comics, she gives the what if scenario if, Professor X was a bad guy. This origin gets crazier because while Sharon Xavier, basically, Charles and Cassandra's mother, was pregnant with both of them, Charles sensed that his sister was evil and decided to kill her. Charles, from the womb, was living up to that by any means necessary mindset we saw him have, later in groups like the Illuminati. But not to dive into that though. But because of that, this caused their mother to have a miscarriage, and it was believed that, Cassandra actually died. However, Cassandra didn't die, she survived. And then she spent the next few decades as a growing clump of cells until she was able to form a body. That's right there is some Darth Maul level hate. Y'all remember Darth Maul got chopped in half, and then just through sheer hatred alone of Obi-Wan Kenobi, he actually kind of willed himself, kept himself alive. That's that level of hate right there that she was showing right there for her brother. But the other question that might come to mind is, why was she just a clump of cells? Well, I'll leave that to you all's imagination because I really don't want YouTube to pull this video. But while attempting though to do this, she held on, to her hate for her brother, and the thought of killing him, was basically her motivation. Like I mentioned a second ago, which I could understand since he did actually try to kill her in the womb. In comics, though, she first appeared, Cassandra that is, in New X-Men number 114, also known as E for Extinction, that came out in May of 2001, and that was written by Grant Morrison. During this story, we saw Cassandra start her revenge tour. She recruited Bolivar Trask's cousin, who I believe that was Donald Trask, and she recruited him to accompany her to this place where the master mode is. Real, quick sidebar, Baltimore Trask, for anybody who doesn't know that name or is familiar with it, was the mad scientist that actually invented the Sentinel program that we see throughout Marvel Comics, the most famous being in the Days of Future Past storyline. Also, as far as the movies go, if you think of the Days of Future Past movie, Baltimore Trask, was that professor off in there as well. So if you've seen that movie, that's who he is. Bolivar Trask, the reason why she had to recruit the cousin was because he had long since been dead. And once they actually made it to the facility, since he is a Trask, his voice alone was able to activate the protocols. Now, after this happened, Cassandra then kills him by taking over his body. Well, I actually think she merged with him actually, but anyway, she then activated the Sentinels. The Sentinels then flew to Geonosa, where most of the mutant population was on Earth, which resulted in the deaths of over like 16 million mutants or something like that. So, yeah, when we see her, massacring folks in Deadpool 3, we shouldn't be surprised. Finishing out this story, which you guys should actually read if you're into comics, it's actually a really good story. But she was able to pull a Captain Ginyu and swap bodies with Professor X as they were fighting before she was actually killed. And then she went out to, pretty much out the identities of the X-Men as Professor Xavier, or so they thought he was. Ultimately, though, she was defeated when she tried to use Cerebral, take over the minds of every mutant on Earth, but Professor X, being the clever fox that he is, had transferred his consciousness into Cerebro, so when Cassandra tried to use it, he was able to take back over his body and pretty much force her consciousness out. After she ended up back in her dead body, because they kind of tricked her into doing so, she was then trapped by, of course, Professor X and Jean Grey, and they put her body into a impenetrable metal box, so that way, again, she would basically be sealed away at that point. Cassandra later showed up in other Marvel Comics stories after this one that included stories that had the Hellfire Club in it, for example. As far as her powers go, though, she's an insanely powerful telepath with the ability to manipulate DNA, to break it down to the cellular level, swapping consciousness that, we saw in Marvel Comics, and regeneration that allows her to heal from wounds. Since Deadpool 3 is going to be rated R, Marvel shouldn't have to scale back her character. I would like for them to make her be as sinister in this movie as we saw the High Evolutionary in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, but just a little bit more brutal, in my opinion, because I think she can be that. Well, that's all I have for the character breakdown, though, in this video. And I think Deadpool 3 is going to be the best MC movie that we have seen since Spider-Man No Way Home. Let me know in the comments, though, your thoughts about the movie and any one of these characters. Are you excited for the movie? Do you actually think that Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool, like he said, could be Marvel Jesus? But in any case, until the next video, hope you all have a good one. Take care.